Many parents and students are concerned about the possibility of budget cuts in the Boston Public Schools. That especially goes for high schools where potential cuts have already been specified. Also concerned are educators, including our guests. We'd like to welcome the head librarian for the Harry Keefe Library at Boston Latin School, Deeth Ellis, and the director of the ELL and Alternative Programs at Charlestown High School, Sunny Pye. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Deeth Ellis. You're a librarian at Boston Latin, and I guess other high schools, they've got libraries, but for people who haven't been to high school lately, what does a librarian do that's so valuable?
So school libraries are really being transformed in this age of digital media, and librarians are used for a few reasons. One, to find additional resources and to curate and select the best resources for teachers and students to use. And there's also a lot more integration into curriculum of skills, research skills. It's totally different than when we were in school, and having students understand what they're identifying online, when they're searching, finding scholarly sources, finding the best sources for their needs at hand. And there's so much information now. We find the Google search will actually result in the same top few results, and to really help kids learn how to do a better job finding information and selecting and reading and evaluating, and particularly in terms of at the college level, really preparing kids for when they go to college to understand when you can find something online, how to do that, when one needs to go to a database, when one needs to go to the library because something may not be available online. Those are all very different than when we were.
So as far as potential cuts, what are you afraid of happening, or losing, as the case may be?
So again, for me, I'm really speaking on behalf of my colleagues of the Boston Public Schools, the librarians. There are currently 3 librarians representing 5 schools, or working currently in 5 schools that we know. They spoke at a meeting, the town hall meeting, and they two of them have been told that they will lose their jobs. So, and they are working in schools that have a high English language learner, free and reduced lunch population. So students really, it's really an equity issue. We really think the exam schools, the librarians are staying put. As far as we know, there may be, Bryant might be at risk of some reduced hours because of potentially losing an aide. However, we really strongly think that all students of Boston deserve to be prepared with these skills when they go to college. Throughout the city. So
you're working with, I guess, some vulnerable students who've been detoured, they got back on track. What do you see happening?
Well, our program serves students in Charlestown High who've gotten off track. So they're 16 years old or older, and they've typically failed an entire year of high school or more than 1 year of high school. And they come to our program to try to catch up and get themselves back on a path towards college. And our program is scheduled to be cut entirely from our budget. We typically fund it off the extra in our budget, and my principal, William Thomas, it's through his ingenuity that we have enough funds scraped together to keep it alive every year. But this year with the cuts, we simply do not have the resources to fund it at all. And if we kept it open, we would end up having classes with no teachers in regular Charlestown High, which we obviously cannot do.
Well, it would be nice to think that somebody in headquarters says, I have another idea about how to help these students do it just as well as it was done before, but has that happened?
Well, people at headquarters have actually been very, very sympathetic and have said, please don't cut that program. We love that program. We know you're doing good work. It's just that right now the numbers don't add up. So people are working and seeing what kinds of funds they can put together. But as of now, we do not have any solution. And our budgets were due to central office in January and February. So our current budget for next year does not contain it.
Right. Deeth, put this into perspective, because when you talk about what is done by librarians, some people might say, well, that's still kind of off on the margins, but I'm comparing that to kids in a good suburban school system, kids where they're all expected to go to college. They're definitely going to have that kind of thing, right?
Right. And if I could be very specific about 3 things that are currently being worked on to be rolled out in the district that will not be able to, are at jeopardy of not happening. two specific things. One, there's a scope and sequence. There's a group of librarians in the district and social studies teachers working collaboratively to develop a scope and sequence, 7 through 12, that all students would get the skills they need, again, aligned with the Common Core, to prepare them and make sure they all, by grade 12, have what they need, the skills, the research skills, to go to college. There's also a really exciting Commonwealth ebook program that we have signed up for. We're in the process of implementing it, and it requires a librarian to be in the schools. And it's a research library, a fiction library, and a primary source and additional resources, all digitally available, that we were able to get through the Massachusetts library system, and we're in the process of setting it up, and it will not be able to be set up in schools that don't have a full-time librarian.
Sonny, what about the big picture in the budget? Because I've heard different things about how much money would have to be cut, and I've also, of course, heard that, well, the city's putting more money into the school system, it's just these other sources, the state and the feds, that you're cutting.
The state funds are definitely something that need to be looked at, especially how much money goes towards BPS versus charter schools, and looking at some errors that are happening at the state level. But at the city level, funding has been increased. 2 years ago, funding from the city went up by 37 million, and a year ago it went up by 38. But this year the funding's only been increased by 13.5 million. And I feel like that story has not been publicized as well. And the cost of salary raises and benefits that are already in the contract totals 21 million this year. So just to maintain the same staff in BPS from this year to next year, we require an addition of $21 million, and we only have 13.5. So even though funds have been raised, schools are getting cut.
Deeth, the other thing here is the importance of a librarian at a school, because when I was growing up, I could go to the BPL sometimes, but this is a different lifestyle. Kids, they don't just go wherever they want when they get out of school now. I guess that means that you've got to have something in the school.
Right. So we keep our library open till 4 o'clock at Boston Latin, almost 2 hours after the end of the school day. We're full until 4 o'clock. And students do need a place to work. They need a place to get Wi-Fi for their computers. Many students don't have working technology at home. Increasingly, with the Google Classroom implementation, students need access. They need resources. They need an adult who can help them with their work. Someone who is, I'm familiar with all of the projects, the work being given to students at my school. That's the same with all the library teachers in all the schools. They know the curriculum, they know what students are being asked to do. They can help them with their homework, their research projects, and help them with what they need to do. Additionally, the NEASC, the accreditation, New England Association for Colleges, Secondary Schools and Colleges, the accrediting institution for high schools, secondary schools, and colleges, they require a librarian on staff for high schools to be accredited. So the schools who are choosing not to have librarians are immediately putting their school at risk of losing accreditation. And one of the requirements of NEASC is to have extended hours as well. So not just during the school day, but to offer hours before and after school, because it's so important for students who need, and particularly in a large urban district, who need that support to get their work done.
Thank you both very much, Deeth Ellis and Sonny Pye. Still to come, keeping on track with medications, but first, this message.